Hey guys, and welcome to another video. Today I want to talk a little bit about something that most of us, or many of us, are experiencing, and that is the spiritual desert, as some people call it. And it's just a sense of meaninglessness around everything. There's a loss of motivation, maybe even for life itself. And at least that's what it was for me. It was a strong sense of nothing being worth it anymore. Like there was no point in anything. And more now I realized that it was my ego, the mind would always chase a goal, like a future goal, something to achieve, and then believe that life would become worth it when I achieved the goal. So I was always running for the future, always trying to get things for the future. And that was where my mind was very strong. And it's still a programming, but it's still seen that there's nothing there, like there's nothing in the future, because life is now, and I saw all the time I spent just chasing a future that when I got there, it was just another goal. It was just another future to chase. It was just a new thing that I would make an object of my attention and that I would chase. So it was always this seeking. And I think waking up, or I know that waking up made me see how meaningless that is, because you sort of live for a future moment, a future time. And when you reach that time, that goal, you're just there. Wherever you go, there you are. I think that's a book from the book written by Jon Kabat-Zinn. And I think that's a really good description of this, this process, that you're always looking for something. You're always trying to get somewhere and something. And we do that in different ways. Like some people do that through, they do that through relationships or maybe more nostalgia. But for me, it was always the future, like the future, the goal in the future. And after awakening, I realized that I just lost all motivation for it. I just saw it as being so meaningless, so existentially like worthless. At the same time, there was a part of me that wanted things, that wanted to get things, but there was no motivation to chase it, because I knew that no matter where I go, this feeling is haunting me, this existential feeling. So the thing is that, at least in my experience, it's that the drive was actually fear. And it was fear of survival and fear of of shame, fear of humiliation and shame, and fear of abandonment and fear of rejection and all those things, and fear of losing the sense of self that I had worked to sort of create, you can say. And it was very subconscious, so I wasn't aware of it. But waking up, I realized that how much I was driven by fear, and it didn't longer drive me to do the things and to push myself so hard and have so much discipline that I used to have. So I went into this sort of spiritual desert where there was no motivation. And I guess it's been coming and going in times. But the dark night of the soul also came along with this in the beginning. But where do I find my motivation, right? That's where I was looking and trying everything, but I couldn't find it. I couldn't find that drive anymore. I couldn't find that sort of passion for something. Like, for example, you go on and Google or YouTube and you find law of attraction, right? And that's strongly associated with spirituality. And I would disagree, to be honest. I would disagree. In my experience, before awakening, I was obsessed about getting what I wanted, manifesting, and I got what I wanted, usually as well, through like either sometimes it took a longer time, sometimes I did personal development to let go of blockages and stuff like that. I did that before awakening. And after awakening, it didn't matter what I got or what I didn't got. It was a loss of preferences. And there was a loss of anything to manifest, because I didn't know what I wanted anymore. I just knew that no matter what I got, that feeling was haunting me. The feeling of existential meaninglessness was haunting me. So the answer to this was a total surrender. And for me, like the surrender of the chase, surrender of the seeking, and surrender of the need for that motivation. And what you instead will experience, at least in my experience, I surrender and I face the fears. Or what if I don't seek or chase or try to get somewhere, try to get something? What if I'm just right here, right now? And that's what we're so scared of. And the ego is scared of that because it can't survive in the present moment. And the more we surrender to the present moment, the more life becomes beautiful as it is. You don't need it to be different than what it is. It's just love. It feels like love. The more you surrender into what is, it's uncomfortable when you first start doing it. That's like when we first start to meditate. It's really like we can really feel like it's uncomfortable, right? But the more we learn to surrender to what is and not needing life to be different in this present moment, acceptance and surrender, it's easier said than done. And it's on the other side of shadow work. You can't get to surrender without the shadow work. It walks hand in hand. It's one and the same thing. So you face your pain and the fear of what, or you face the thing that keeps you chasing, which is usually some sort of restlessness and some sort of avoidance. So when you surrender to that, like, and you face what's beyond the chase, and you surrender to that, then at least in my experience, you just meet more love. You just invite more love into your life, and you're more okay with what is. And creation becomes, in my experience, it becomes inspiration. I'm inspired. I'm driven by love, for sure, and I'm driven by joy of creating. You know, I'm by the joy of the creation process itself. And you don't care about the result anymore because you're just right here, right now anyway. And life has everything you need. Maybe you need something, like maybe you need food, you know, maybe you need a shelter. It's not like you don't, of course, your body, your biology has needs to survive. We can't deny that. That's real. But you don't seek in that sort of meaningless chase anymore, because everything you need emotionally is right here, right now. That's when you surrender. You have to face the shadow. That's the way to get there, is through the shadow, not trying to talk yourself out of it. That's what the mind does. It's some of us more than others, but it tends to be very strong avoidance mechanisms after awakening. Still, we can feel a strong sense of, I don't want to look at my shadow. I don't want to feel this. And you can try to distract yourself, but eventually it will come up. And you can really trust the process. The emotions aren't dangerous in themselves. It's more dangerous if you don't feel them, because then you can develop like disease and depression and stuff like that. So emotions are safe to feel, especially if you are in a safe environment, of course, and you know that you are safe, then you shouldn't worry about that. So I guess for me now, it's more the try to get somewhere. It feels more and more uncomfortable. It feels like I'm trying to run in the water. It's like it's so heavy, it's so dry, like it's trying to get somewhere. It's really, really uncomfortable. It's way more interesting to be with what is. It's way more interesting to be around at the exact place where I'm at, in the room that I'm in, right? And create in this moment instead of trying to be somewhere else. And it reminds me of childhood, when you're born and everything is just fascinating and interesting, and you don't need, of course you still have needs. It's not like that. It's more like you don't dream about the future when you're a kid. You're in the moment and you're curious about what's around you, right? And this is what you return to, your natural state. But at least for me, the future, thinking about the future was sort of a way that I was avoiding fear. And I really, really had to, and shame as well. So I really, really had to face it, to stop chasing the future. And now I can, of course, I can have things I want to create, but if the moment it comes from fear, and of course it can appear, but I now sense that, oh, this comes from fear. This comes from like attachments, desires, that what is not good enough. And when you say what is now is not good enough, it just becomes more and more uncomfortable after awakening, because you are everything. And when you start to experience non-duality, it just feels like love, and it's really hard to deny that. It's really hard to deny reality and to try to manipulate and change it, what is. But again, it doesn't mean that you can't take action, inspired action, loving action, that comes from the heart and not from the ego. And that's not only beneficial for you, it's also beneficial for the world, right? When you can act from that inspired place, that is eventually like divine creation, if you want to call it that, not egoic gratification. So yeah, there's a grief of letting go, and the spiritual desert, which was the topic of today, that is a whole letting go, and that in between state of losing motivation before that divine inspiration comes on board. There's usually a drought, like there's usually a time where there's just nothing. You're in a cocoon and there's just nothing. They're just like, you feel like it's just so empty, nothing drives you anymore, right? And some people experience it, some people don't. I think it's quite common, so it's nothing to worry about. And if you're going through this right now, then when you watch this video, I recommend that you sort of stay with it. Don't try to change it. It's okay to lose motivation when you wake up. It's normal. The ego motivation dies, so that engine loses its fuel, and there's a different engine with a different fuel that still haven't started running. So it's an in-between state where we tend to stop and go within. And I recommend that you surrender more to the present moment, and not trying to change and try to find motivation, because you're not going to find it in the old way if you had an authentic awakening. So that was my video for today. And if you have any questions or comments, then just leave them below. And you can also check out my free masterclass in the description below. And yeah, subscribe to my channel. And until next time, much love and namaste.